Think about the last time someone's wealth bothered you, not philosophically, personally. The specific irritation when a colleague mentioned their new apartment. The quiet satisfaction when someone you consider shallow hit a financial wall. The particular way certain people's success registers as an offense rather than just information. You've felt that. Don't perform otherwise, not here. What if I told you that reaction has nothing to do with your values? That the heat you feel when confronted with other people is money is not evidence of depth. It is evidence of a desire you've locked in a room and told yourself doesn't exist? No. Not the version of you that has principled critiques of consumer culture. Not the version that has read the right books, simplified the right things, built the right identity around the right contempts. That version is coherent. That version is public. I'm talking about the version underneath, the one that tracks, counts, notices, and reacts. The one that your spiritual sophistication was specifically constructed to hide from others and, more importantly, from yourself. Carl Gustav Jung, one of the most important thinkers in the history of psychology, understood that our deepest obsessions don't disappear when we condemn them. They go underground. He called it the shadow. And there, in the darkness, they do not weaken. They intensify. They run you from below while you perform freedom above. This video is for you who have built an identity around not caring and can't stop thinking about the thing you don't care about. For you who use words like conscious and aligned while quietly tracking who earns what. For you who sense somewhere beneath the performance that your contempt and your craving are the same thing, and you've never let yourself look directly at that. This is not a video about becoming more spiritual. It's about becoming more honest, because Jung understood that what you condemn the loudest is what you haven't integrated, and what you haven't integrated runs you. So let me ask you again, what if your contempt for materialism is just your obsession with it, wearing better clothes? Let's begin. You believe the problem is out there. Consumer culture does hollow people out. Status anxiety does destroy relationships. You're not wrong about any of that. But the real problem is not materialism. The real problem is what you've done with your relationship to it. Carl Gustav Jung saw this clearly. He called it projection. The mechanism by which we perceive in the external world precisely what we cannot acknowledge within ourselves. When something triggers a disproportionate reaction in you, not mild critique but genuine contempt, a heat that doesn't match the occasion. That heat is not about them. It is a signal about you. Projection doesn't require you to be a hypocrite. You don't have to secretly be buying sports cars while preaching minimalism. What gets projected into the shadow isn't the behavior you condemn. It's the desire underneath it. The desire for security. The desire to matter in ways the world can measure. Those desires get buried the moment you decide who you are. You only know they're still there by the strength of your reaction when you see them in someone else. Think about someone who genuinely doesn't care about money, not performing non-attachment but actually indifferent. These people don't have strong opinions about materialism. They don't feel the need to lecture. The topic holds no charge. Now think about someone who cannot stop commenting on it, who experiences the success of others as an offense. That charge is not evidence of enlightenment. It is evidence of an unresolved internal conflict. And here's where it gets darker. The persona of the non-materialist is socially rewarded. There is enormous status to be gained by performing contempt for status. The irony is perfect and merciless. You can acquire admiration and social capital through the very mechanism you claim to reject. The currency changes, the game does not. François de La Rochefoucauld understood this 3 centuries before Instagram made it visible. He wrote, "Our virtues are most frequently but vices in disguise. The spiritual identity is still a status play. The contempt is still a competition. They haven't left the game. They've found the move that makes them look like they've transcended it. Every time you signal disdain for material success in a social context, you are deploying values as currency, purchasing approval, constructing identity, positioning yourself in a hierarchy." Jung called the constructed social self the persona, and the persona is not who you are. It is the face you learn to wear because it works. And here's where La Rochefoucauld sharpens the blade. Writing in 17th century France, surrounded by aristocrats who had refined self-deception into an art form, He observed something Jung would confirm 3 centuries later from the inside of the psyche. The spiritual identity is not the absence of status seeking. It is status seeking with better aesthetics. The person who makes sure you know they don't own a television is not free from social competition. They have simply found the move that makes them look like they've transcended it, which, in certain communities, is the most powerful move available. La Rochefoucauld called the engine beneath this amour-propre, self-love so total, so structurally embedded, that it disguises itself as principle. It is not lying exactly. It is something more insidious, a genuine belief in your own virtue that is itself a product of vanity. You have convinced yourself. That is what makes it so difficult to see. But here's the question no one asks. What would you actually pursue if no one in your community would ever know? That's what we need to understand next. And the answer is darker than you're expecting. So why does this happen? The obvious answer is conditioning. You were taught that money corrupts, that spiritual people don't need things. So you split. You kept the desire, shamed it underground, and called the shame enlightenment. But that's not the deepest layer. Jung understood that the psyche develops by division. The child is whole, wanting, expressing, taking, until the world begins to respond selectively. This version gets approval. That version makes people uncomfortable. Ambition gets filed under greed. The desire for security gets filed under weakness. And the ego, the identity you walk around in, genuinely believes these things are not you. The shadow is everything you are that you've decided you aren't. It is not your worst self. It is your most complete self. The parts rejected because they didn't fit the identity you needed to maintain. And the shadow doesn't disappear because you've decided not to identify with it. It goes into the basement, and it speaks through the intensity of your reactions to people who are doing what you've forbidden yourself to do. Here's the mechanism in 3 stages. First, the desire gets buried early, through family, religion, class, culture, a specific wound. You make a decision about what kind of person you're going to be. That decision requires locking something away. Then, the identity gets built on top of the burial. Every contemptuous comment about consumer culture, every demonstration of your minimal lifestyle, you're simultaneously reinforcing the prison walls and collecting the social reward for doing so. The persona feeds itself. The shadow grows beneath it. Finally, the projection becomes compulsive. The more invested you are in the identity of non-attachment, the more aggressively you must condemn the thing you've buried. This is why the most devoted anti-materialists often have the most visceral reactions to other people's wealth. It is not that their values are deeper. It is that their shadow is fuller. And the most disturbing part? The contempt keeps the desire alive. There is no more reliable way to remain obsessed with something than to make it forbidden. What you resist does not dissolve. It persists, clarified by the prohibition, given shape by the boundary you've drawn around it. Do you see it now? That particular quality of attention you give to the thing you've said you don't care about. The tracking of it, the noticing, the specific emotional signature when it appears in someone else's life. That's not indifference. That is the shadow watching. And here's where most people stop. They perform a brief moment of self-examination, conclude they are, in fact, genuinely non-attached, unlike those other people who merely perform it, and return to the same patterns in more sophisticated language. Knowing about the shadow is not the same as confronting it. You can describe the mechanism perfectly and still be completely in its grip. But if you think that's the deepest layer, you're wrong. Because what I'm about to show you in the solution changes not just how you see your relationship to money, it changes how you see every identity you've built around a contempt. And that's what most people are never willing to do. So what do? Abandon your values? Start openly chasing everything you've condemned? No, that's still the same trap, just inverted. Trading one unconscious compulsion for another and calling it freedom. The person who swings from performative non-attachment to performative acquisition has not done the work. They've changed costumes. The real solution is shadow integration. Jung called the full process individuation, the movement toward wholeness through conscious integration of the disowned self. But don't mistake this for self-indulgence. Individuation is not the destruction of your values. It is the refusal to mistake the persona for the soul. Here's what this looks like in practice. The next time you feel genuine contempt for someone's materialism, not principled disagreement, but the specific heat of disdain, do not follow it to its object. Stop at the charge itself. Write down privately what you would have to want if you stopped condemning this. Not a philosophical answer, a personal one. The discomfort you feel doing that exercise is the shadow-making contact. That discomfort is the work. Then do what Jung called confronting the projection directly. Find one honest statement about your own relationship to money, status, or recognition that you have never said aloud to anyone in your social circle. Not a confession, a fact. Something true that your persona has required you to keep quiet. Perhaps it's that financial security matters to you more than you've admitted. Perhaps it's that someone else's success genuinely threatens your self-perception. Say it to yourself in specific language, without immediately attaching a story about what kind of person that makes you. What has been named can be integrated. What remains unnamed runs the organism. Finally, and this is where La Rochefoucauld becomes a scalpel, take your 3 loudest public contempts around materialism and ask his question: who benefits from this position being visible? Not, is it true? It may be entirely true. Ask who profits from you performing it. If the answer involves your standing in a community, your identity as a certain kind of person, or the implicit comparison it draws between you and others, you are looking at amour-propre operating through principle. The contempt is real, the shadow interest underneath it is also real. Both things are true simultaneously, and pretending only one exists is the prison. I need to be honest with you about what this process feels like. It is disorienting. Things that felt like principled values will look like performances. The identity structure you've built will feel less solid. This is not a problem to be solved. This is the process working. Jung called this the dissolution of the persona, and he was clear it precedes integration. You must lose certainty before you gain wholeness. The confrontation I'm describing has an architecture. When you've walked through this, when you've integrated what was in the shadow, something fundamental shifts. You stop performing your values for audiences who weren't asking. You cease constructing identity from contempt. You no longer need other people's choices to be wrong in order for yours to feel right. The energy that was spent managing the shadow, maintaining the performance, monitoring the threat, discharging through judgment, that energy returns to you. You didn't know how much it was costing you until you stopped paying it. What replaces it is clarity about what you actually want, not what your identity permits you to want. What you, in the absence of an audience, would pursue. For some, this is permission to earn more, build more, want more, not because money is the point, but because security is not shameful and ambition is not greed. For others, it confirms a genuine simplicity, but now it's chosen rather than performed, and the difference is everything. People will notice. They'll say you've changed. Some will accuse you of having lost your depth, and this is proof it's working. Because La Rochefoucauld understood that the person who stops performing virtue destabilizes everyone still in the performance. They'll dress the discomfort in the language of concern for your values. Let them. Jung called this individuation, not the best version of yourself as defined by your community, but your actual self, integrated, functional, and no longer divided against itself. It doesn't start tomorrow. It starts now, with the willingness to look at what your strongest reactions are actually protecting. If you've made it this far, it's not by accident. Jung would say the psyche brings you into contact with exactly the confrontation you need at the moment you can bear it without fleeing. That you stayed, through the discomfort of recognizing projection, through the harder discomfort of recognizing it in yourself, is the work beginning. Now write in the comments, I face the mirror, not for me, for you. And if this channel is where you do this kind of work, subscribe. Not because it's comfortable here, because it isn't. Jung understood that the shadow loses power the moment it is consciously named. Not analyzed, named. Not processed in private, acknowledged in language you've attached your identity to. When you write those 4 words in a public space under your account, you are performing an act the persona actively resists. You are admitting in front of witnesses that there is something in you worth examining. That small act of resistance against self-deception is the first move of integration. The comment is not performance. It is the first thing you've said today that isn't. La Rochefoucauld wrote, "We are so accustomed to disguising ourselves to others that in the end, we become disguised to ourselves." That is the prison. The decision to stop, even in one small specific moment, is the door. The next video goes deeper into the projection mechanism, specifically why you draw the same people into your life, over and over, and why changing your external circumstances never solves the internal architecture. It's waiting for you. You've already begun. The question is, will you continue?